Dominic.
This is so great to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
Many, many years I've known you, and I've been able to witness your career as a business person, on how well you've been in the business of music, and as an artist, always at the highest level of performance and professionalism all the time, Greg.
Thank
You've
you,
never slipped. You've never showed weakness as a professional. This has been an amazing journey. And the sessions really is about focusing on the business part of what magic that you have brought to the music industry. How did this all start from a business end? Where did your professional career start?
Probably with, as you knew, my dad very well, and my mom. They loved you, Dom.
Oh, they're great people.
They would let me sit in with my dad's band and go with him on his gigs and help him set up his gear. And the number one thing is we don't want to be late. The wedding starts at 9.
Right.
You know, they finish eating, they bring out the cannolis. By 10 o'clock, we're doing Proud Mary. And then we're going into Satin Doll, and make sure you play a bossa nova here, you know, Girl with Emphysema. And then we're going to do this. And by the time we do the hokey pokey, you know, we could do the dollar dance. And my dad just taught me and my mom the ropes of, you know, having a band and being on time and getting paid. You always get paid before the last set, or there's no last set. And then you divvy up the money and you do the gig and you go home. And it's just, they really instilled that business aspect. In fact, I remember once my dad getting on the, you know how you had like maybe in a basement back east and in Detroit, New York, you have a basement. I was talking to this guy that wanted me to play on MAME, the show, the Broadway musical MAME.
Right.
It was at a high school community theater. And my dad at the time, it was $50 a gig. It's just $50 a gig. That's what we do. And this guy's got me, I'm an 11th grader in high school. He's got me playing on MAME for like 2 months for about $10 a week. And my dad says, I'll just keep my ear on the other line upstairs, you know. So my dad's listening, and then the guy, Glenn, I can never forget the guy's name. My dad says, yes, Glenn. Oh, who is this? This is Greg's father. I'm on the other line. Oh, yes, Mr. Bissonette. He goes, you want my son to do a gig for 2 months for $10 a week? He says, well, that's community theater. He goes, that's not what we do in this house.
Right on.
We do $50 a gig. We do a wedding, we do a bar mitzvah, we do a...
Right on.
He goes, well, community theater doesn't work that way, sir. And my dad got me a raise. I didn't get $50 a week, but
that really is the professionalism, how we raise the standard of music. So they're not taking advantage of musicians.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the industry kind of goes. People take advantage.
That was
play
it.
for free to expose yourself. That kind of exposure.
What's the thing in Hollywood? You got to pay to play.
Pay to play, yeah.
You got to sell 100 tickets. You know, here you can have the gig, but here's 100 tickets. Sell them to your friends and give us the money, and then we'll let you play.
An intense concept, and that's what's happening. How did you go to that professional level where all of a sudden you were performing with all these great acts? How did that transition happen?
Well, thanks, Tom. What I've done, and I know you probably preach this too, there's 2 ways to go as a musician. You can try to be the lucky, blessed guy that's in a band and the band gets huge, and you're in the world's new biggest band and you're rolling in the dough and life is good and everybody loves your music. Even that is only for a little while. But so many people go that route and the odds are against us. I've gone with the advice of my parents. Why don't you try to be the best Dom Famularo you can be? And then when Journey needs a drummer, you audition like you did. Or when this band needs a drummer, you audition. And then you just go from gig to gig, because there'll always be times when somebody, God forbid, breaks a leg or quits or leaves or is fired or whatever happens. And you can get in there. And that's how I've gotten every gig. I mean, Maynard Ferguson was that way. After Peter Erskine, there were some drummers and then they left and then I got the gig. And David Lee Roth, he left Van Halen, so the drummer in that band, Alex Van Halen, the brother of Eddie Van Halen, that was the band. But Dave started his own band, needed a drummer. Same thing with Toto, Jeff Porcaro passed, but then Simon Phillips hurt his neck. I got the stuff for Simon. That's how this stuff works.
But you're playing, what you've done almost like on a business side is you didn't focus in on just being a rock drummer or a jazz drummer. You, more than anybody in this industry, plays every style authentically. It's not like playing, some guy said, well, I play a little Latin. No, you understand the core elements of all these different genres.
Thank you.
That's a part of a business skill.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
Well, that came from, again, I got to tell the truth.
From your dad,
it's
man.
my dad.
Yeah.
You know, he said at a wedding, and when Dom and I grew up, we played weddings.
Yeah.
Now they have disc DJs, but you play a wedding, you play bossa novas, you play swing, you play a foxtrot. What's a foxtrot? You play rock, you play funky stuff. You know, like funky stuff in our day was maybe Ain't No Sunshine When She... Well, then you play Smoke on the Water, and you play, you know, Duke Ellington. You play all these different things, and that was the norm. And it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles and I started meeting people that were rock specialists, but they don't do other stuff, or jazz specialists, but they don't play rock gigs. You know. And I remember once a jazz drummer coming to a gig I did, and he says, "I want to be a rock drummer." And I said, "Well, do you like rock?" He said, "Not really, but I know they make more money. They play bigger places." Well, I said, "You gotta like rock." And I remember a rock guy coming up to me at the Baked Potato in LA and saying, "I want to be a jazz guy. Can you teach me to play jazz?" I said, "Sure. Do you love jazz? Have you ever gotten into Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Weather Report?" No. Chick Corea? No. Well, you gotta like jazz. Why do you want to play jazz? And he said, "Well, I know when I saw Vinnie Colaiuta play here last week and he played a drum solo, afterwards everyone stood up and just applauded." They don't do that at my rock shows. That's why I want to be a jazz. That is not why you want to be a rock and jazz and all around Latin and everything, so you can work. So you can get gigs.
But that's almost like a business. That's a much wider business vision, that you see the potential of wanting to learn from all these different genres, meet musicians of all. I mean, you have networked brilliantly with so many musicians at all different levels. That's been. I mean, how do you maintain this? How do you maintain this level of intensity?
Great question. And Dom, you and I are a lot alike. And I've never met your parents, but I bet they're a lot like
just
my
like your parents. That's why I loved your parents so much.
And they loved you. And I'll tell you, there's two things you brought up here: being stylistically diverse as we are, and being in networking as we do. And the stylistically diverse, we just covered that. That's from, we didn't know we were being stylistically diverse. We just played gigs that were, and then all of a sudden, I guess I should continue to work on all these different styles, because that's being a drummer. But the other side, the networking side, it comes as basically as this. As basic as this sounds, it comes from enjoying being around people that we got from our parents.
Absolutely.
And if my dad was taking a taxi ride a half hour in Montreal, and I was in that cab with him once, he knew the cab driver's whole family, how many kids he had. He knew if, you know, where they're from.
I've witnessed that with your dad. It was brilliant.
And you're that way too. And that's why I see you. We did a clinic tour in Australia, and I'm in the back trying to figure out what the heck Virgil Donati just did with his right hand. And you said, "Yeah, that's great. I got it." And then we'll get a good talk about that in a minute. I'm going to go say hi to a few people, and I'm going to follow Dom. And Dom went out and not only talked to everybody and signed autographs, but he gave out his email and he got their email.
Absolutely, man. Bring it on. Absolutely right.
And my dad went to the first NAMM show with me, my mom and dad. My mom clocked out after a while. This is too much. It's the Bud show. I can't hang it. Overwhelmed. But after the weekend was over, on a Monday, we were driving back home from Anaheim, and my dad said, "I've never witnessed any show like this." He said, "I think you hugged, not just handshake, I think you hugged. I lost count at about 2,000. All these musicians know each other, and they know about their wives and their kids and where they grew up and you know thousands of people." And so that's the beauty of the music business. These are my friends.
Absolutely.
Like they're your friends. That's networking.
But that's networking at its highest level. Those people skills, a lot of kids don't have that. They're shy, they're nervous, they hold back. And then when they hold back and they don't ask questions or don't get involved, when they leave the situation, they are regretful that they didn't open up more. What you have done, first of all, your positive attitude, your reputation precedes you so clearly that you've been clearly able to lay down the groundwork of who you are, non-threatening, you are completely open. And even with the gigs with Ringo, I mean, you're working with the top musicians in the world at an intense pace the way it is, with a Beatle at that level. And no matter where you go, you are down at the level of the people, you're welcoming them, you really understand that. That's a skill. That's a skill, life skill that you got from your parents, from your family, from your brother who's a phenomenal musician. All of that comes down to the point of, that's gotta be thought about at some point when you say, I want this to be my livelihood for the rest of my life. I have to act a certain way, and then eventually it becomes you. That's powerful.
Well, what a great point. One of the things I think I've sort of figured out early on is that I don't care if it's Ringo or David Lee Roth or Maynard Ferguson or Carlos Santana. Everybody's a person. You know, everybody's a person. And some of these, there's the old thing like, don't meet your heroes, they could let you down. Well, that depends how people meet their heroes. If they meet them and they're so shy and so locked up that they start laughing or crying and they can't talk, what do you want to talk about? What do you need? If you just treat people like people, no one person, as you know, I'm not preaching to the choir here, no one person is better than any other person. Whether you've got $1 billion or you've got nothing, or whether you're the hugest pop star in the world or nobody you've ever heard you play, we're all God's people. And if we treat everybody like that, that kind of breaks down that wall, and you do that. Everybody's a person, and we're all equal. And so, yeah, you can deal with certain bands or certain people that have desires, and everyone's got their own scene, but if you could just, you know, don't freak about it, don't stalk, don't freeze up, but if a kid gets to meet a hero, just try to look at them as another human being and cut through the veil, pierce the veil.
That's the deepest life lesson, that the message of the sessions as we do these interviews really need to be heard. In closing, what would you say to the next generation? We're here at a university now, you know, and in Albany, to St. Rose, to talk to 300-400 music students about the future on how they can enhance themselves to love doing the music industry. Steve Jordan said something wonderful in his interview. He said, we don't need the music industry to play music, but the music industry needs us to make music.
Boy, is that true.
Very, very profound.
Boy, is that
what would you leave with these students as far as just how they can guide themselves for the future of being involved in the music industry?
Great question. The way I'd like to leave it would be, I'm a big history fan, and if you learn about history, you know about what's coming.
Beautiful.
And if you learn about the history of music at the breakfast table today, we were talking. Somebody, I don't know if it was you or Paul, somebody said that one of the students didn't, or none of the students knew who Jimi Hendrix was.
Absolutely, we were freaking out.
Who's that guy that played the Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock in the morning when the sun was coming up? Well, that's Jimi Hendrix. If you learn about the history of music, going back to Africa, India, going all through blues and all through jazz and all through R&B and rock and roll and pop, and if you learn about what's come before, you'll have a better glimpse into the future. That's one thing. And the second thing is to just try to, and it's the old, they call it the golden rule, but it's hard to do. It's so hard. I struggle with it every day. But try to treat people not the way they treated you, but try to treat them the way you wish they treated you. You know, and then if we all do that more, and you do that, then you know that's why you have the success you have, is because you're that man.
It's powerful that you live this life. You are the example of exactly what you're saying, to teach people how to treat you. Is really what that is. That's powerful. The fact that you do it, GB, all the time you've been doing that, in all of the bands that you've been in, you continue to do it. You are absolutely one of the leaders in the music community, of course in the drumming community. It's powerful. On behalf of the sessions, we thank you so much.
Brother, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, John. I love you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.